So
Yeah.
the second is designing, and I think it's been inherent in our conversation, but designing your life to be compatible with your HSP traits. It can be a pain, but it pays dividends.
Absolutely.
So if you have an HSP child and they don't want to go to the birthday parties, that's normal. I mean, it's okay to not go to the birthday parties, or to spend less time there. Or you adults with HSP, take a separate car. I just thought I was antisocial at times.
Yeah, and it's things as simple, like you said, as taking a separate car is super important, because then you don't feel, there's that fear a lot of times for HSPs of feeling trapped.
Yes.
Like going somewhere that maybe you want to go, but not being able to leave when you want to leave. And so that's a simple solution. Take your own car. Have your own exit.
I like that. The next thing, somewhat related to what we're talking about, is reframe your past in light of HSP. In other words, look at when you were a child. There was probably some emotional wounds and some emotional labels that you were given. Hey, you're too sensitive. You are looking too deep into this. You need to just relax. You need to let go. Look at those times in light of this new information and a redecision. You weren't weird for needing your space. You weren't strange because you didn't really want to hang out with more than a couple of people at a time, because there's less intensity that way, or you didn't want to go to the birthday party. It's re-looking at those things about yourself and being kinder and gentler about the reasons for that.
Yeah, I think that is so important, and I can relate to before figuring out that this HSP was a thing, that very much feeling like, why am I so weird? Like, what is it about, why do I respond to things differently than other people? And then, like I said, when I saw the documentary, it was like that light bulb went off, and it was like, oh my gosh, other people experience this too, and there's not something wrong with me. I just process things differently. I have a different way of experiencing the world and the things that I'm taking in, and it really helped me to reframe things when I look back at my childhood experiences. And also, if we, as for anyone who's listening, if they're going, oh my gosh, like I can relate to this, if we didn't know growing up that we were highly sensitive, how was anybody else around us able to understand or know that and know how to care for us?
That's a good point. In fact, I think it was said too that, a partner, I don't know if they were, I think it was a relationship. They asked, how am I supposed to know if I'm with an HSP? Well, my thinking is, if you're asking that, you probably aren't, but you're not supposed to know anyway. It's up to us to set that, to ask for what we need.
Absolutely.
And it's not easy. You have to, if you have these sensitivities, don't hold your tongue. Just say, this is what I need. For me, there's restaurants that have wood floors and are really loud, with no barriers, even especially without wall hangings, they don't soak up the sound. It is so exhausting for me to go to one of those restaurants, especially if they're packed full of furniture. Can't do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have the same problem, and I actually have hearing loss, and so I struggle sometimes with my hearing. But there's something about certain tones, or like you said, being in environments like that it's like I can hear everything, and it's too much, Or going into Walmart or a very busy store at peak business hours, like that is the last place. That's the last place I want to be,
Yes.
But simple, that sounds like, I don't know, it may sound weird to someone who's not sensitive in the same ways, but Something as simple as figuring out, what are restaurants that are soothing and comfortable and don't drain me? What are the places I can go where I don't feel drained? And that doesn't mean I never go to those places, those places that are overwhelming, but I might limit how often I go to them or when I go to them,
Have your own car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
I was just going to say, also, talking about like the bonuses or the gifts of being an HSP is HSPs can make really great leaders and supervisors because they're able to see all the details and how things impact the people around them. Good
point.
Yeah.
I want my leader, my director, if it's not going to be me, I want them to be an HSP.
Yeah.
And so the fifth thing is something you were already referred to is no other HSPs. Have other highly sensitive people in your life because they get you. Because those are the ones that when you say, dude, I'm staying home tonight, they're gonna, and I hope they would do this anyway, but they're the most likely to go, well, so am I. They get you,
Absolutely. Or if they, and that's very much my life. Like, I can look at any of my fellow HSPs that I do life with, and I can be like, nope, not happening. And they're like, yeah, I get that, and that's so important.
I remember a mutual friend of ours saying, hey, I just made the drive down to hang out with you guys because, Tammy, I wanted to see you while you were in town, but, I had a time limit. I've got a time limit what I can handle.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's really good. Yeah. This mutual friend, really good at taking care of herself. And that's, I think that's something that because what you're really referring to is other HSPs not only get it, but hopefully they're encouraging you to care for yourself, even if it looks different from how they care for themselves.
Well, and I want to be around people who care for themselves because then I don't have to worry about what you need because you're going to tell me.
Yes. And that goes back to that self-advocacy thing, of telling the people around us, what is it that I need? Because even if you're another HSP and you're picking up that something else is not okay or that somebody has a need, you may not know what it is. And so one of the most empowering and self-care things that we can do is advocate for ourselves.
I like that. That it absolutely is in general, whether you're an HSP or not.
Absolutely.
So some suggestions, and if you think of any others, Lori, please feel free. But one of them is that when you're in that place of overstimulation, and the way my body knows is I start to get a little bit shaky. I get very very focused in what I'm doing and saying, and that means I don't want to really talk to anybody if I'm overstimulated. They say to close your eyes because 80% of the stimuli comes through visually.
Yeah.
But also...
Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay, go ahead.
Well, no. If you have something to add to that.
Well, I was just going to say, really cutting off or controlling any sensory input when you're overstimulated.
Yes.
Is going to benefit.
Well, I think it's kind of the example of when you get lost, you turn down your radio so that you can focus.
Exactly.
Kind of that same thing. But we mentioned ways to self-care, meditation, massage. For me, chiropractic is that as well. Let's see, watching your diet. You don't have to go to a therapist in order to work on the HSP, but going to one is certainly a form of self-care, and that is really, really wonderful for some more good news about HSPs. We may clue into stimuli in general first, but we're also, with the therapy, it works even faster. Any kind of self-care like that, it really helps heal any kind of old messages or your way of coping. It's very powerful.
Absolutely. And there are some really good, in addition to therapy, there's some really great HSP support groups out there for people, like maybe if, in my opinion, therapy is such a great tool, but also, in addition to, or if that's not the right avenue for you, there are other resources out there.
Yeah. So many, actually. So many.
Yeah.
What about from the view, and we'll wrap up in the next few minutes or so, but what's your experience with clients around HSP? Anything that you've experienced that you can think of, how it's impacted in your office?
Yeah. So, a lot of times what I run into is when I'm working with clients who are HSP, something that you said earlier is a lot of times they don't even know that they're HSP. And it's not until we're doing some work and I'm like, and they're saying certain things that are like kind of keying me into, there's some sensitivity issues here. There's some difficulty with, processing or not understanding what their needs are around sensitivity. And so I'll suggest or, say, well, do you think that you're sensitive, or, it sounds like you might have some sensitivities. And so I'll encourage them to go take the self-test. Sometimes I will do it in the office with them. And oftentimes I see that light bulb thing that I described when I realized that this was a thing for me. I kind of see that go off for them, and they start noticing in their life the different ways that, the different things that play into their sensitivity. And one of the things that I really encourage is for them to really understand and learn for themselves what, being an HSP means for them. How do they experience it? Because for every person it is different. And what are the needs? What are their specific needs when it comes to those things? And what are the vulnerabilities that play into it?
It must be very rewarding to see that light go off.
Absolutely. It really is. And it's really exciting to see a client figure out ways to care for themselves that they hadn't considered before or didn't have awareness around before, and suddenly they're able to really see themselves and their previous experiences differently, but also be able to navigate things differently, and how it kind of transforms too when they share with the people around them that know them the best. And it's interesting because something that I often hear reported is they're not really surprised, but the people in that person's life are not really surprised by this. Really? Yeah, like the people who know them the best. Well, that explains why this happens for you, or that explains why this happens for you. And if they have those people around them that can, even if they're not sensitive, but can understand that this is what's happening for them and that they have a different way of caring for themselves, there's so much success that can happen in that kind of scenario.
So will you once again remind people of the website where they can get this quiz done?
Yes, it's hspersons.com. And there's so many resources on there. You can take the self-test. As a parent, you can take the quiz for your child. It also gives a reference to all of the books that Dr. Aaron has done, and some other resources. There's blogs and other stuff like that.
Beautiful. I love that. And are you open to anybody with questions reaching out to you, and any particular email or anything that you'd be willing to share?
Absolutely. So my email is Lori, LORI, as in Martin, at terrellcounseling.com.